Ooh, everyone. I was gonna say, I was like, hey, that's not me. That's me now. April 25th. Yeah, yeah. It's as we now know. Yeah, we had the date there, right there for us. Uh, Someone says you have no audio. I am talking. Hey, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us. You apparently missed half the conversation that was switching identities. So there was that. But BubbleCon was excellent. Uh, Heather just asked me about it if you can't hear her. So we had a fantastic time there. It was my first MomoCon ever. It was amazing. We got to I got to run a few panels there. We talked about a lot of stuff. I ended up modding a panel that I was not expecting. That was pretty cool. But most importantly, we got to show off our our playtest of the Search for Luvino there, and everybody that was there had a great time. I had a great time running it. It was really nice it's always nice to run into gamers. It's even more nice when you run into gamers that are also fans of like your favorite video game or your favorite video games. So we had a pretty good time with that, and the playtest went really well. And I'm glad that I thank you for everybody that came out and had a lot of fun. MomoCon is itself very cool. It is if you like not only just gaming, but if you like anime, if you like video games, if you like everything nerdy, just kind of packed up into one spot, then MomoCon is the place to go. And I think they had their largest audience this year so far, and it's right nearby. It's right there in Atlanta. So if you have a chance to go next year, I will probably be there again, and the years going forward. It's great. How you doing there, Heather?
Let's see. Can folks hear me now? Am I coming through? Did I think I
Can anybody
just
hear
missed?
Heather?
It looks like I think it finally.
You have audio. All right,
Yay!
great,
I
yay.
don't know why. It always get everything set and then something I change one thing and it all goes whoop. So whatever. It's
That'll
technology.
go.
We are but slaves to the technology. Okay, so yeah, MomoCon. So yeah, running. And the thing is that between the two of us, we have completely inadvertently, without any planning whatsoever, have completely seemed to split up the summer conventions.
Yeah.
Because you went to MomoCon, and I found myself at Origins just about a week ago. So there was. I mean, didn't wasn't able to do a whole lot, but Studio Two Publishing, which carries our Esper Genesis line of books, were there, and they were really fantastic. I finally got to meet a couple of people from Studio Two. They were right there at the front, so if anybody went to Origins, you probably went right past them. You'd see the large white shelves with the books and everything. And they had several of the Esper Genesis line there, looking so pretty, so pretty for
They are
that.
pretty books. They have good things inside of them too, but
Yes, they
they're
do.
pretty books otherwise. Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
art, of course, with everything is gorgeous. So,
Someone told me that not to name, like to I won't name names, but I went over to another designer that I actually admire very much, and I gave them Esper Genesis books, and I was like, here, like, you kind of inspired me to to do some of this work, and
Aww.
like, look at, he was like, oh, he's like these are, he's like, these are real pretty books, but you got to make sure that there's good stuff inside them. I was like, I guess, yeah, there's definitely good stuff in there, but that stuck with me. So
Yeah, I. It's not like just open it up. You'll see. There's lots of good stuff in the book.
yeah, there's good stuff in there. No,
uh,
I'm old enough from the days where I everything all of my original books were black and white, and some of them were stapled, and the stuff inside was more important than everything else.
well, the next one. Let's see. I know I'm going to be at a small con in Lake Geneva the week before Gen Con, but the big news, of course, is you'll be at Gen Con. Unfortunately, I will not be there, but you will be there. So tell us what's going to be happening at Gen Con.
We will be Eric and Chris will be there with me, and most likely you'll see some others working on the book, but they'll also have, like, their own things going on. Sean and Ginny, and we'll just we'll kind of be scattered all over the place. But myself and Eric and Chris will for the most part be at the Studio Two area. They have kind of like a um I think the numbers is 1929 and 2029. They just kind of have like an entire row of two sides of books, and we're usually there either closer to the corner or in the middle. And we will be talking our Esper Genesis wares, and talking about Phantasy Star. We're gonna have some interesting things there. We're gonna have a couple of neat giveaways. If you are a pre-order, with us, or you want to pre-order, like, to come on over to the table and talk to us, ask us questions. We will give you things. As we like to give things to make people happy. We also have our sneak peek seminar, which sold out really fast. I was not
Yeah.
expecting that. We put it up where I was like, maybe we should have done two of these. But yeah, it's sold out pretty quick. So that I think is either that Friday or Saturday at 1. But afterwards, for those of you that cannot attend, we will be around there for as long as they let us stay in the room, and then we'll be heading right back to our selling area where everybody's free to ask us whatever you want. But we'll have a pretty cool sneak peek show there as well. Fortunately, we are not able to schedule any games,
Yeah.
there's only a few of us there, and yeah, we all have schedules to keep. And it's, again, our company is kind of a conglomerate of other people who also have, like, their own brands and companies that they do stuff with. So our schedule's a little iffy. That being said, I recall having a conversation not too long ago on Discord about setting up getting people to come out to cons to run games, getting kind of like
There's definitely been
just like
some.
a just a group of game masters set up that are interested in running Phantasy Star and Esper Genesis. Well, Esper Genesis, for aside from Gen Con, most cons, uh, Baldwin Games sponsors our Esper Genesis games, and I'm pretty sure that we might run Phantasy Star through them as well. But that being said, we still would like to get like a group of dedicated game masters together that are interested in running. So I'm probably going to end up putting up a sign up site. We can't do anything obviously until the game is out, which is why there hasn't been any major forward motion on that yet. But once everything is together, then it's good to go.
Yeah. I was going to say that, I mean, Skydon, and basically, it's this is a group of independent creators all coming together to make amazing games. So, in very much ways, under Rich's ownership, tutelage, however you want to put it,
Yeah.
organization, he basically takes on the red tape and deals with all that. So it's a small operation, but it's one done with passion and lots of experience if you put everybody's years together. So we do what we can. But I will make sure to get all of the specifics the details where the booth is, any of the scheduling and everything. I will get that up on our Discord and all of our socials fairly soon so that everybody's aware. So, yes, and so you know where you can stalk the Wild Rich Lescafair and his team at Gen Con.
Oh, wild. Whoa.
Yeah.
Craziness. Crazy talk.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I've seen you at cons. You can't lie to me.
I'm a different, that person is just kind of like a robot clone of me that does other things.
Usually a few drinks and Gary Con. Anyway, that's a conversation for another time.
Hey, that
But
was not to be brought up.
uh, I,
So
well, it was my martini that spilled, so I'm
I'm
just.
joking. I'm joking. Getting at least a little buzzed at CarryCon is
That's. I think it's in the
requirement, almost
I
requirement.
was
Yeah.
gonna say. I think it's in the bylines or the small print. When you sign. Get your badge.
Depends
It's
on what,
like.
I guess because of what color badge you have, it's the amount of drinks you have to drink.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Well, I've been a vendor every year, but this year or going into 2026, I'm I'm no longer a vendor, so this is going to be a whole new experience when I go to GaryCon, which it will we'll both I think we'll both be at next year. Yes?
I
Do you know yet?
possibly.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, that's in
I'm not sure.
2026. That's in
Yeah.
20 that's in
Yeah.
2026, and right now I think the next time you and I will be in the same place will be Gamehole Con in October.
Yep. In October.
So, yeah,
Where that's another thing I can bring up
yes,
now
because
because
but
we
Fantasy Star will be out by then.
Phantasy Star will be out by then. There will be we haven't listed them officially yet, but since we're on the chat, we can talk about it. We submitted another panel, which is not a sneak peek as the release should be out, but that panel will also have kind of like a presentation of the game, our discussion of what the company wants to do as far as next steps, and how we want to get our licensing agreements together, and what we want to come out with in the future for Fantasy Star in particular, for the rest of our games tangentially. And we will have at least two Fantasy Star games happening at GameholeCon.
Woohoo!
One
Yay!
is going to be the starter adventure, which I will not be running, but I will be running a um I guess the Adventurers League folks call them author onlys. so
Oh,
so I'll be running like my personal uh, adventure that I wrote myself, called the New Pioneers.
oh,
It's a Fantasy Star Online themed adventure for
there you go. You heard it
that
here
way. Yep.
first. The new pioneers at Gamehole Con, and I know Gamehole Con they've just reopened for like this past weekend and then shut it down again. It's game
Hmm.
submissions because they've had so many. So it's in there. It's in the
It's
queue, and as soon as we find out more of when it gets scheduled, we will pass that on because I know that game's gonna sell like gone, gone.
Looking forward to it.
I want to see how fast our head'll spin. That's fantastic. But yes, okay. So let's use that, and we're gonna segue right into the Fantasy Star updates because I know a lot of you that's what you're interested in. We will get to the Fate Point system. That was for those of you who are on our newsletter. Who are subscribed to our newsletter, you just got that just a few days ago, where we gave you that first look at the Fate Point system for Fantasy Star. But
Yeah, great.
okay, so end of September is the so far right now still on track to be everything to be shipped out for Fantasy Star. Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. That is barring any natural disasters or hands of fate or the like. But as far as everything we are doing is concerned and our numbers are concerned, yes, that is the That is
Yeah.
the date.
And shipping right now, I think, is only to the U.S. We're not just we don't have distributors overseas. I know that was a question for some
We
people.
have well, so okay, so shipping right now is
I'm
only
gonna let you take
from
this.
the U. Yeah, shipping right now is from the US. We are, we can ship technically anywhere.
Right. Okay.
But shipping out of the US right now, I've received emails about this, people comment about this, and it is understandably expensive. It just is. There isn't anything that we can do about that here. As we have as far as the way everything that we have set up and how we're licensed out and how our production is going. This initial batch can only be shipped out of the United States. Um, from as from Studio Two as being our distributor. We are not, what we charge for shipping internationally is what we're being charged for shipping internationally. So there's not really much of a give on that one. That said, for those of you who are not looking forward to paying a lot, that much money for international fees, we are planning on branching out to other distributors. But like, our initial, especially to make our deadline, everything right now has to be one batch coming out of the United States.
Yeah. And with the tariffs and everything that have been go ongoing for the last few months, we have I know we've really tried to keep, not changing the pre-order amount, costs, or anything else, to still try to keep it where we can. But there's a lot of things we can't avoid in doing that. So unfortunately for all of our international folks who are ordering guests, it's just going to be out of our hands, at least for the time being. So we are doing our best. But hey, we've
We
got
appreciate
till
your
the
patience.
yeah, we do. We, we,
Yeah.
we appreciate, we're grateful for anybody who's still willing to go that route. Um, you're, this is going to be an amazing system. Again, this has been a labor of love, I think, for you, Rich, because this is one of the things
Oh
you,
yeah.
you love. You love this game. You love this whole universe.
Yeah, ever since I wanted to even do anything with RPGs, one of the, you could ask anybody that was working with me. I had like three IPs. I'm like, if I ever work with an IP, Fantasy Star is on that list. I must
So
get
yeah.
it.
So recently, if you have been checking out some of our socials, you'll see that some of the newest art that we've been putting up did actually include right there some of our Fantasy Star Online. So I know there was talk of, well, is it just the series? It's everything, or at least as much as possible. I mean, there's a lot. There is a lot.
There's a lot. There was a lot of back and forth about Fantasy Star Universe. Um, but just classic Fantasy Star and Fantasy Star Online alone is just enough of a bunch of timeline stretches to where, and Fantasy Star Universe is so much different from, as far as story, as far as characters, kind of all of it really. So we want to explore that. We just can't do that right now, not in one book. It would just be too much content.
Well, let's get to, I'm pretty sure, to what most of the people really are tuning into this for. Not for us, not for these pretty faces. No, 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 no. They are here for one of my favorite mechanics. Um, for this game, probably for any game that puts them in, but certainly for Fantasy Star. Let's talk the fate point system.
Okay. Fate points came about right after our playtest in I think in November, probably the first time we were doing it. We I was running the game, and you know, heroic inspiration is kind of like a, I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. Everyone uses it differently in D&D, even though like the explanation is the way it is. And we had already taken a lot of the standard 5e isms out. Pretty much, a lot of the things that we already did with Esper Genesis, and we were kind of like, scaled away from a lot of the core 5e rules. And when I was doing something with inspiration, I basically said at the table, okay, yeah, don't worry. Like people just kind of like holding their inspiration tokens, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna save it. I'm like, don't worry, I give them back. But then I sit there and I talk about it, but does everybody? Like I give them back. Like I like kind of do that whole thing where you do something cool and
Yeah.
here's an inspiration or something along those lines. But I've played at a lot of tables where that doesn't happen, and a lot of people just kind of forget that it exists. So and for a game like Phantasy Star where everyone, has their own special form of heroics, I said, okay, well, let me actually make a system to where people can tailor their roles. People actually have a chance of like not just rolling uh, the same sequence of numbers, for the next, 6 to 8 games where, you raise levels. Hey, like I can arbitrarily add a die to a roll and it can be for different things. And you can kind of control the player controls how they have and how many they can spend. And even though it takes it out of the GM's hands, at the same time, I think it gives the player a little more agency with what they can do
Hmm.
in certain circumstances with their character. So the way the fate point system works, sorry, I'm going back and forth about
No.
the origins of such, but every character every character gets a set number of points that between rests. Each of those points you can spend for a attack or saving throw or a check. And low level characters start out with a D6 that they can add to their roll. You can spend two of those points and you can get inspiration. On your roll, you can use fate points to avoid death saving throws. And there's a variant mechanic that allows you to, if you roll bad on your fate point roll, if you roll a one, then bringing the GM back in, the GM gets a Bane die, and kind of like how luck works. You have your bad luck moment, and the GM kind of has a die where they can say, okay, when you have like an attack or a saving throw or a check, the GM gets to throw that die in and say,
Hmm.
this is just not your moment. That's an optional rule. Another mechanic that I put in that's another variant is a fate pool, which instead of each character having points, those points go in. I don't know if anybody has played older editions of Shadowrun,
Hmm.
where like
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite things was like the old karma pool where people could just kind of draw karma out and oh yeah, and the team kind of reminds, hey, we have something in the karma pool, like use it now because we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
And so I threw in something like that. Now those are just the base mechanics for those fate points. Fate points also are now a part of each character profession. So uh, you have certain characters that can do certain things with fate points, or they have abilities that they can use to regain fate points. They have abilities where they have features where if they expend a fate point, then they can regain a certain use of a particular profession-based feature that they have. And so I wanted to integrate the system so that it's more versatile than just kind of a general block of things.
Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons why I know in a number of games that I tend to play or run, um, I love this type of mechanic. It doesn't have to be exact, but I love this type of mechanic because it allows the player to kind of personalize their experience, to be able to give those more epic moments that people will be talking about, far down the road after the game session itself is over. I mean, especially when you're basing it off of an IP that is, video game, or think of like the pulp genre of like TVs and movies and things like that. There's a reason why it kind of follows that. These characters can have these epic moments, or these really like huge moments, or where things really really good or really really bad happen to them,
Mhm.
that kind of go beyond the scope of what is just normal, what would be normal gameplay, or just the normal flow of things. And fate points are a perfect mechanic to help bring that. Um, so I know there's a few systems that I work with that have something similar. And some of them are called fate points. I know Star Trek Adventures has things like momentum and whatnot. And they do
Mhm.
stuff like that. And again, it's why I love those mechanics. It's that same type of like, I need an assistance. I don't want to fail this. I want to be able to do this one like really cool, like big epic move that there's no way in hell I could possibly do otherwise. Um, so yeah, I mean, having those in here, it's just like, oh, this is, I'm just more excited. Like I need to be more excited, but I am more excited because, well, I mean, it's Fantasy Star, and
Yeah.
you almost have to have that. So, I know that the one we're looking at, that everyone I've shown on the screen here, um, this is the current thinking of it. Are you thinking of any changes to this possibly before we finalize, or is this pretty much going to be
As
it?
the preview went out, no, that should be, as I'm adjusting my camera from doing weird things, remember? That's weird things.
Our technology is, we are not professionals in this whatsoever. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
Uh,
So,
for the most part, that should remain the same. That this it went through a couple of iterations. This was the last one that I'd used at MomoCon, and that seemed to flow pretty well. And we had our play testers here kind of go through it. And even though so at pretty much at lower levels, you're kind of trading away doing something super massive for having control over the big thing that you can do. And
mhm.
that's the basic definition of it. It gets better once you start accumulating more points at higher levels, and the die that you get increases. And then you have more of as you raise levels, the fate point system becomes even more versatile, and then your profession gives you more options with fate points. So, we wanted to be something useful, but something you can grow into. And I think that worked out pretty well. So, but the basics that we sent there out of the preview, those are pretty much going to be what it is.
Okay. Well, we have a question, so I'm going to read off of this.
Yeah.
Since advantage is roughly equivalent to a +5 on a roll, why
hmm
s- why spend 2 fate points for advantage after reaching 11th level when I can spend 1 fate point for a plus 1d10 bonus die, which is also +5 average, and +6 at 16th. Someone's already planning ahead for high level
Oh
stuff. I
yeah.
love it.
When I looked at that, I said the same thing myself. And the answer is, for the most part, you wouldn't. If you think about it mathematically, sure, technically on average, when you get advantage, then you get you get a +5 bonus. Now that's just the basic math of having advantage. That being said, you know, do you want that +5, as far as that average, or do you want to roll the die? That's really going to be your choice as you raise in level. Also, very importantly, there are professions that have particular attributes that they get when they have advantage rather than a fate die. Think about, the operative, which is Fantasy Star's version of the rogue. There's a lot you can do with advantage over your die.
Yeah.
So spending, those 2 fate points to get advantage on something might be the way to go that you want to go with.
So
There are other abilities and and techniques as well that incorporate advantage over just having a die to roll.
So really, in the higher levels, it becomes where do you, what do you feel comfortable with? What do you want to use, or do you want the more guaranteed like +5, or do you want to take your chance and rolling the d10? I mean, it there comes a point, especially when you're getting into the much higher levels of any system, where some of the mechanics that work for quite a while, for many levels, not necessarily start to break down, but start to not be as, I don't want to say appealing. Help me out here. It becomes more of a player choice
Yeah.
to whether or not to use them, because they don't provide the automatic, boost or guarantee boost, or guarantee numbers that they did for all those levels. I mean, most people, if you actually run a campaign that goes beyond your players turning 10th level or not, that's pretty impressive as it is. I think
Hmm.
most I know most games tend to die off by the time you hit about ninth level.
Yeah.
Ninth
So we
so it's
that was another discussion we had all together because we wanted to make the game so that you want to play through your entire 20 level run, and the leveling mechanics and how that works to bring characters up to those high levels, and uh to tailor stat blocks and monsters to be a bit more. I wouldn't say more challenging, but just more fun to engage with at higher levels. There was a lot of back and forth through that. But yes, when you're a lower level, instead of having that D6 or that D8, for your fate points, you may want to go for that advantage. Once you get to higher levels, there are certain features where you want to have advantage anyway. Again, like, having advantage gives you, just to use the operative as an example, that has that version of sneak attack. You want to have advantage. That's how you get it. When you have a lot of situations that will give you disadvantage to anything. You have disadvantage to save against something. Well, I spend 2 fate points and I now negate it and it's gone. And
right.
now I can save. There's a lot of usefulness for it outside of just the plus bonus.
If anybody has any questions, definitely put it in the chat. So we definitely would love to get that answer. So let's see. So advantage may have more value than just the bonus, and there's the certainty question. Yeah, I mean, if it gives you, if it's an asset, it's an asset that you can now
Mhm.
utilize in whatever way works best for your character, for the situation in game, or just whatever crazy
Mhm.
things you might decide you really want to try and do.
And it can also be used to negate disadvantage, which is something a
Yes.
lot of people forget about.
Yeah. And that can be important. That's the difference between I'm going to die terribly and I might actually survive this potentially if my fellow party members don't leave me behind, and
Someone might actually be able to pick me back up with Rever versus like me being disintegrated and I'm gone for good. And
yeah. That's kind of, that's kind of important, if you want to keep playing. So, and I love that it was thought out like beyond just that initial like first 9, 10 levels. There are, some systems really do tend to start breaking down after a point, and it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that the thought process was there, like how do we take people from level 1 all the way to level 20 and make sure that things, even though they change and evolve, are still relevant and useful. So that's something sometimes you don't see with with the creation of some systems. So bravo, I
yeah,
love that.
it's
Okay,
oh thanks.
we yay, round of applause for you. Okay, so we have a next one. See, it was mentioned in Discord that skills ranks will replace proficiency bonuses, and that ranks are gained at origin and then when leveling up. It was also said that they aren't quite like 3x skill rank rules. Can you give us more details on how these Fantasy Star skill ranks work?
Okay, when you first create a character, the you pick your origin and your background, and those aside from your initial profession come with skill ranks. So we you still have the for those of you that have seen the Esper Genesis sheet, you have your list of skills that come with it. It's very similar to like the other 5e skill list. But it has, things like computers and mechanics and xenobiology and such. That said, when you pick your origin, depending on what you pick and depending on what your background pick, you get a number of ranks that you can assign to skills instead of the standard proficiency bonus. Usually, the normal way for everybody knows this. You're proficient in a skill, you get your proficiency bonus to that skill. That has now gone away, and you still get your ability score or ability score modifier. We can call it for the 5 isms. Uh, but you get to instead assign your own ranks to those skills. Now, the big problem that 3E had, which was the problem that I always thought it had from the very beginning, is that there was no control over those over those. You got skills, you just dumped points into like wherever, and it just sort of became very swingy, I guess, is kind of a
Yeah.
uh kind of against the wall, and what worked and what didn't. And
The
we
spaghetti
wanted
method.
to, yeah, that's exactly. We wanted to constrain that a little bit. So you still get your points, but you also have caps. So and your caps are dictated by your level. So you can't, so if you have like, 5 points to put into something, you can't just drop all 5 ranks into a skill and be like, I'm super master in this skill and I'm level 2. No, you can't do that. Uh, so the points are a replacement for proficiency bonus, or the ranks, I should say, are a replacement for proficiency bonus, to where you're still getting what would be something similar to what the proficiency bonus gave to characters, but you have, again, kind of like the fate point system, a little more control as to what you specialize in. Your origins, says, you can assign 2 ranks to one particular skill and another rank to another skill. And then your profession gives you skills to assign ranks to as well. If you hit your cap in those skills, then you can take those ranks and you can assign them to other skills that you would not normally get. Because again, every character is different. Why does my warrior know nothing about medicine? Why couldn't they? Or uh, so when we put it together, we put it together in the vein of, we still want the balance that proficiency bonus gave for skills, but we wanted to give that control again to the player during character creation, instead of it being just sort of set, and then you have to wait until you get to a particular level. And then the old way was, you got to a particular level, and then everything you're proficient in went up by 1. And then if you're still at 0 at something, then you were at 0 at that, and then that's the way it's going to be until you get that proficiency. And we wanted to change that a little bit. We wanted to give it a little more versatility. So that's the general overview of how it works.
Hopefully that answered your question, the Star Goblin radios. But yeah, I mean, yes. Yay! So, but yeah, I kind of have to agree with you on the whole skills with, especially with the 3 line of things. It really was kind
Mm.
of a, yeah, okay, I'm gonna put my points in, but does it really matter where and when? It just kind of throws it out. So making
Yeah, when
sk-
you're just
yeah,
erasing and increasing numbers, and that's it.
yeah, making skills, making any mechanic viable, making it useful. I mean, don't just put in, you know, um, some type of mechanic, whether it is and it's something with the attributes, whether it's something with skills, whether it's something with any like fate points, whatever it is. It just putting in mechanics to because that's the way it's always been done or that's what's expected. If they're not useful, why have them there? I mean, when people are trying to cram all of the rules and the guidelines and the mechanics into your head and trying to keep track of them, if there's something that's in there that I don't, especially I know me, I love the simpler the better. So
Hmm.
if there's a mechanic in there that's just in there and I kind of have to keep track of it, but it doesn't really apply, it's like, why bother to do that? Now you're just giving me busy
Yeah.
work. I don't want busy work. I want a game.
There's also there was also my thought personally that the skill system I thought that it was when Flory came out,
Mm,
I had thought that the skills, the kind of like compressed skill system was one of the better decisions that they made
mm,
for for the game. But the way it carried forward, it it really just gets used for roll a die to pass something usually in adventures.
mm,
It's sort of like an extra like here's a block, roll a d20, and then something happens. Skills get kind of underutilized, and only particular characters have specialty in certain skills. And I wanted to change that to where skills can also be, incorporated in, with someone's origin and say, hey,
mm,
I'm this. It doesn't matter what my profession is. This is my background, or or this is my origin. And you get to when you're working with ranks that you're focusing on putting in kind of building out your skill list, you're going to prompt yourself to use those skills more in any situation versus being prompted in a in an adventure or just having the G waiting for the GM to prompt you to say roll this skill. You could say, hey, I'm good at this, and
yeah.
I want to try something different.
Yeah, which I, as a GM, generally encourage my players to do anyway. Like, if there's something you think that you want to do, you there's a role that you think would be equivalent. Don't wait for me to mention it, like I would, but go ahead and bring it up so that that is
Yeah.
already built in, having that interaction, and that I would say it's kind of a combination of the responsibility of the player as well as the agency of the player to be able to bring that forth,
Hmm.
and not waiting for the GM to, like you said, to kind of have to dictate, specific roles or whatever else. So I like that
Yeah.
interaction. That's like, because I mean, you're a team at the table. The GM and the players generally are working together to create whatever that session is. It shouldn't be one side or the other. It should be working together. And with players, they really, you know, go ahead, take a look at your character sheet,
And
see what's on there, and if there's something you want to do, if you there's something you're looking for, if there's something that you want to utilize, bring it forth, and
yep.
that the mechanics lend themselves to bringing that power to the player.
And again, you have and game sessions are supposed to be well, game sessions are supposed to be not only versatile, but they're also supposed to be able to bring your character into part of the story and integrate them. So you're supposed to be able to challenge the GM as much as the GM challenges you. So
Yes.
whatever's on your sheet, keep the GM on their toes and like they have the same amount of fun working the back and forth as you do. And then there's going to the character aspect. You can kind of go to, I could bring up any scenario. We'll bring up Fantasy Star 4. We'll bring up
Ooh,
Alice and Chaz. Both of them are hunters. Both of them are very different hunters
very different.
with
Yeah,
likely very different skills, right? So, I got to bring that versatility to the table.
absolutely. Oh yay, another rules light gamer. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's always been the system needs to serve the players, and the GM. It
Yeah.
needs to serve the people who are utilizing it, not the other way around. I'm sure those out there who really prefer a crunchy game love, they dive in feet first and kind of, swim in the mechanics, and that's their happy place. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's if that's your happy place, go for it. All the rules. But for a lot of folks, especially those who are kind of newer to the RPG world, the community and playing, the level of the difficulty level of entry needs to be a lot lower to kind of bring people in, and allow them a chance to utilize it. And if what they're coming into shows that what is there on the paper is for them to utilize, that they have power to do this, and XYZ, and create this character in their own, they're kind of mold it to their own
Hmm.
devices. um,
I'm kind of a middle grounder. Like I love I don't like a lot of crunch, but I do there needs to be enough crunch that sustains the game. There are games I do love some rules light games, some very rules light games. I love those, but I will not play them for more than a day or two because then you kind of run out of it's unless you have like this exact right group with this exact right idea that knows exactly what they want to do with this, like, 1 or 2 pages of rules. And this is just my personal opinion, that
yeah,
this is
this
not,
your this your preference, yeah.
this, I get to, I get to share this while I'm talking on on a stream, but there needs to be enough at least, sets of rules to where you can build something with it, just
Hmm.
using what you're given.
Yeah, it's for me, it's not necessarily. I mean, rules light is great, but yeah, there needs to be a way to build, especially if you're playing longer term. So
Hmm.
for one shots, make it as simple as you
Oh yeah,
can. Let's
absolutely.
just go balls to the wall and just do whatever. But if there is a campaign, there needs to be a sense of accomplishment, whatever that, whatever success looks like to the group. Is
Hmm.
that gaining in levels? Is that just defeating bigger, tougher, mobs? Is that expanding your conquest across all the worlds? Drinking at least one drink in every tavern on in the universe, and well, let's just say friendly companionship in every port. Whatever it is, I mean, leaving the trail of bodies behind, the whole murder hobo thing. But there has to be a sense of accomplishment, sense of what I'm doing as a player, as a character, us as a party, the game. There's a purpose to it. There's something
Hmm.
going on, and there's growth of some type. Um, I know right now my personal 5e game. I love my friends. I love being doing playing together, but we've kind of been in this dungeon. It's an older school dungeon that's been adapted for 5e, by the GM. And it's like, okay, what are we doing today? Is it the same as yesterday? And it basically almost is. It's like this slow crawl through this mega dungeon, and it's just like same shit, different day. And it's
I mean, that's
after a point, I'm just like, can we do something different? Because I'm not feeling like I'm accomplishing anything. So
I grew up in those mega dungeon crawls, so I understand.
yeah, yeah. It's a little tough. It's almost a mental game. It's like, no, we just got to get through this dungeon. Well, it's okay. We get up, we fight through a couple of rooms, and we rest again. I mean, it's like, okay, I work an hour and then I'm done again, kind of thing for the character. So having systems that reward both short term and long term, and show that building of successes is kind of important. It really wants to show your room off.
It really does. It's like show off all of Rich's stuff, everything, all of it.
I love it. Okay. If anybody has any other questions, please put them in the chat. We're gonna start working towards wrapping up. What is I let's switch because we've got into a whole different tangent, which is
Yeah,
fun.
we went to mechanics. That's always a fun discussion that lasts forever.
That can.
But
What
I do love it discussing it though
so
because
I do
I
too.
like.
What bonds gamers together? No, it's the discussion of mechanics. That's really it. It's the ongoing. It's like a philosophical debate. It will go on for all time. Um,
I will say that for for mechanics, and I had answered this question probably on another stream and on Discord and on and it's it was the question of why why D20, like that
yes.
but it's it is what, like it or not, and this is not even my quote. This is a quote from one of my friends. And, he basically said, like it or not, that is what Fantasy Star was born from.
Oh,
Its source. It's came out of came out of wizardry and the old PC games, and all of that came out of D&D
yeah.
with your with your hit points and your and if I'm going to do justice to that series, because the classic series is my favorite, then I'm going to use those things. And, that's that's where I am with it.
Choosing.
But I'm going to make it as fun and interesting as possible because I want familiarity, but at the same time I want the ooh, this is new. Ooh,
Yeah.
this is different. Ooh, this is, not the same thing I've been doing for the past 10 years. Like this is, that's what I'm looking for.
And really, D20 being, I mean, since the OGL way back, became a thing, and everything, and D20 kind of opened up to the RPG community in terms of creation. It really is kind of this standard baseline in a lot of ways. It's familiar to enough people at its core, but again, with any new system, with Esper Genesis, with Phantasy Star, that's it. Just because it starts at D20 doesn't mean it's D&D in space. This is its own thing. It just starts with the D20, the
Right.
D20.
Starts with the core mechanic.
It starts at its core, at its little heart, because this is, like you said, this is where a lot of these RPGs in the video games kind of came out of. They kind of came out from that era. So by utilizing that as a base and then building upon that its own mechanics universe, so to speak, structure, and details, then it becomes its own thing. But
Mhm.
not there are so many D20 games out there that are not D&D. That they're just not, folks. They really aren't. Just because it has a D20, it does not mean it's D&D. But there are roots. There's a roots for a reason.
Well, that and it's also for a lot of games like that. It's also familiarity. It's the how you mentioned the onboarding is a lot easier for people and for customers if you want to look at it from the business standpoint as well.
All right. We have another. Let's see. I note that the chance of optional Bane dice decreases with a larger die size. This reminds me of some games without to hit rolls that instead have a critical hit come from a max result on the weapon dice, meaning D4 daggers have a high crit rate of, say, like 25%. Interesting.
That is interesting. I was like I was wondering if that was a question.
But that's but
To which the answer is yes.
so the so with the optional Bane dice, why don't you talk a little bit about that real quick, because I don't think we've actually discussed Bane dice.
So it is an option. It's an optional thing I thrown in because again, it's kind of the once you take the GM out of the entire system, then there would need to be, I wanted to bring that option into where the GM kind of has a role to play as well. So if you roll a one, or a natural one, which terms no longer used, right? If you roll a one on your fate point, then the GM gets a Bane die that they can use against you just the same way in the same way that you can use a fate point. Or, if you can use a fate point to cancel out a Bane die before it's rolled, or the GM can do the same thing to you. That being said, the point made, which is the way it was designed, is that higher level characters have less of a chance of hitting that one where the GM gets a Bane die, and that is by design. We're trying to, we want everybody to have fun.
Well, that, and as a character
So
gets higher level, you get better at what you do. And
yes,
therefore,
uh,
this would be a mechanic that kind of reflects that increased growth and ability.
correct. That also remember that the Bane die also, again, as the point was made, increases in potency, even though there's less of them.
So if it actually comes up, it it's there's a lower chance of it happening, but when it does, it's going to
Hmm.
hurt really really hard.
Right.
It's
Because
going to hurt
because
a lot.
the GM can, because when the GM gets a Bane die, it doesn't get it, so the GM gets a Bane die. Let's say you roll a one on your fate point roll. The GM gets a Bane die. That GM could hold on to it for
Hmm.
however long they want, in the session, and use it on anybody, not just you, just anybody in your
Yeah.
group. Just drop it down at the very last minute as something important. And you kind of don't want a lot of those. Those aren't
No,
fun.
you don't want to really give the GM any more ammunition
Yeah.
than they already have, but that can still be fun because even those, it's a difference between, oh, ooh, I took an arrow to the knee, and
Hmm.
my knee now looks like a pin cushion, and I'm going to try to turn around and like stab the other guy with my knee with the arrow. I mean, it allows you to go a little crazy, but in the best way to make it
Yeah.
memorable and be
Well,
fun.
you also have your players that are like, I'm gonna hold on to my one last fate point because I know the GM has a Bane die or two Bane dice or whatever. Just in case something really horrible happens, I need to conserve this to cancel it out. And
So I have a couple of
that's another.
questions. Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw these out. So go with the fate system. Um,
Hmm.
what's the refresh rate on it? How's when they, I know they
They
usually start with a certain amount, but how is it refreshed per game session over the course of the campaign?
they refresh every long rest. They refresh. There are So again, that's the standard page. They refresh every long rest. There are optional, well, that's not on that page, but there are optional campaign rules available to where maybe you want like a fate heavy game where you have the fate dice regen every short rest, or characters get one fate point back every short rest, or something along those lines, to where, or you can just have them replenish every session versus having a long rest. You start a brand new session, everybody gets your fate points back, so that way, the session is constantly running where everybody has a pool of things that they can do. There are also professions like there are the operative can just sort of, I get a fate point by using this particular feature. There's a path for the warrior where they get to a high enough level in that path, and like every time a combat round starts and they don't have a fate point, they get a fate point. So there are different ways to gain them while you're playing, but overall, the standard rule is they refresh every long rest.
But there's still enough of that give and take that really, it,
Yeah.
I mean, you could hold on to them, but I mean, holding on to one or two, may. but generally just use them. I mean, use them, make those moments,
Make
especially
those
if
big
they're,
rolls.
yeah, if there's going to be that ebb and flow back and forth. Um, and yeah, watch out for those Bane dice because your GM.
Optional rule.
I also one of my and I'm really glad. I'm going to say this. I'm really glad you put the variant, the option for the pool, like the group pool, in. Um, when I run Star Trek Adventures, we have momentum and we have threat, which is basically momentum for the GMs. It's a very similar style, and again, I love these mechanics. I have so much fun. The players have so much fun utilizing them. And there's always a pool. Everybody gets their own, but there's always a pool of it, and that pool goes in and out and ebbs and flows, and it. I have seen more awesome moments, and the players have so much fun knowing that they can pull from their various options, and having that. If I was running a Phantasy Star game, there would definitely be I would definitely be using the pool. Probably everyone would get a little something, and then they'd have the pool to work off it, because honestly, it's probably one of my favorite mechanics that of almost any of the Fate Point type mechanics on any game, because I have seen so many good moments.
It gets a little more, it also creates a little more camaraderie, right? Because everybody has this one pool to work
Yeah.
from, and it's, oh, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And that actually, I can segue into that and talk about uh space combat, which
Oh
is
yes, please.
is an entirely group dynamic thing where the fate pool would be even more useful, because you are as a crew controlling one ship. Everyone has their maneuvers, but the ship goes on its turn, and all of your maneuvers affect each other. So the crew has to decide what order their maneuvers happen in. And so having that pool to pull from, where, let's say you don't have necessarily a captain, but you have a pilot or anybody that's actually issuing commands, or you have just a group, okay, what are you going to do? And well, I'm going to, the pilot's going to do evasive maneuvers, and which means that, the technician has to do something, to stop the gunners from losing, advantage on their roll. Which, by the way, you can spend fate points to negate that. We're going back to that original discussion, and and
Don't
it's and
forget
it's
that.
oh, but the other technician, like, we're almost out of hull, and we have to, like, perform a jury rig, and it's which role that, which crew member's role is more important that turn. So who needs those fate points more, and you kind of get to
Yeah.
decide that by using the
But yeah, the pool really kind of draws them together, especially when you're talking of you are a crew. You know, you are all in on this ship. You're all in this situation together. So even if there is any kind of, PvP, our, role playing, there's drama on the ship between characters or whatnot, that pool, that mechanic really kind of draws them together. It's like, look, you all have, your fate is all intertwined, whether you
Mhm.
like it or not. So, of all the mechanics, I think that pulls them together the best. Um, a question: are there a lot of variant suggestions throughout the book, outside of the fate mechanics?
There are. Uh, I throw in whenever it's uh not just I throw in variants for fun, but at the same time, I also like to throw in variant rules whenever it's necessary to call back to recreating something, let's see, off the top of my head, in the origins. So I have, multiple variants for, like, the way when you're making a character, there's variants for different types of environments that the characters are raised into, and whether or not you can transition those to other species depending on what game you're trying to emulate as well. So, like, there's the android species, where they have all of these. they have all of these traits, but uh, which type of setting are you in? Are you in are you in Phantasy Star 3 where androids were able to use techniques? Well, we can do that. So here's a variant, and then here's how you tailor that variant to the rules of that android. I have a few things like that that I throw in here and there. And whenever I'm writing something out, I try and take the entire series of games into account because it is a Phantasy Star game. So you want to I want to put that first before uh the mechanics. I like creating mechanics, or I like using existing mechanics, especially ones that I've already written, but I don't like shoehorning them to where it takes away from the feel, right?
Right.
You wanna still feel like you're playing a Fantasy Star character in a Fantasy Star setting.
Right. But giving players options, giving GMs options, allows them to tailor the game to the way they want to play, and that's always the awesome. And especially with something like Fantasy Star, where if you look at the main series, and then you look at online, and then if you look at the all of the games involved in the Fantasy Star universe, there's a lot of different mechanics. There are a lot of different, some of them don't quite work with the others. So having those variants allows the groups to be able to really customize and kind of play that Fantasy Star world that they want to play in, which helps. It's always fun.
Yep,
All
that is
right.
correct.
Any other questions? Go ahead and put them in. Otherwise, let's just do a quick overview on what is coming up. So it is July Eve, the end of the week here in the States. We are going to end the week with a bang, several bangs, and it's going to be incredible. Big explosions because it's going to be the 4th of July. Um, and goodness, I think we have another stream. We'll have another stream coming up probably after Gen Con. We're
After
gonna
Gen Con, yeah.
After Gen Con. I know summer is insane, and you've got a lot of stuff to work on. So, and a lot of stuff going on. So our next stream is going to be after Gen Con. We're going to talk about, and this time I'm going to like sit there and poke Rich from afar while he's in Indianapolis and remind him to take pictures and video for me so I can put them
I'm
in the
such a terrible
video.
picture taker. I'm sorry.
You are. That's why you have to bring me along. It's all right. We're already in talks. I'm going to take a ton of pictures at Gamehole Con since we'll be together. But our next live is going to be after Gen Con. I'll get the dates up as soon as we kind of nail down what's going to work best because the kids go back to school and everything else. So we're going to work around a lot of our stuff. And one other thing I'm going to put out there is Rich and I had talked back in May. I think it was like when you were going to MomoCon. There's going to be a contest of sorts. Everybody who pre-orders Phantasy Star between now and September 1st, which is the cutoff date, a name is going to be drawn. I have one lucky person who puts an order in, and they are going to get that order for free. So that is coming down the pipeline. So if you have already ordered, you are already entered into this. If you want a chance, or you and a buddy, get your friends, get your family, whoever you want, get your pre-orders in, and one person's going to have their pre-order, the cost, everything's going to be refunded. You're going to get it for free. And it's going to be amazing. So, and then you'll be able to sit there and brag to everybody that, hey, I got this for free. So that is going to be in the works. Looks like we got one more question, and then we are going to close it out because as much as we adore talking, and I've not seen my friend in almost 2 months, it's getting kind of
I
late.
gotta go to work.
You got to work. Yes, you do.
I
You
gotta
have a lot
work.
of work to do. I've got work to do. What am I talking about? Okay, one last question. Are there simple spaceship or vehicle customization rules for the gearheads in the party? Please say yes. That's me. Please say yes.
Customization, yes. So if we are using, there's going to be general stats for every type of ship. For anybody that kind of I know anybody that downloaded the free Aspergenesis rules, that there's going to be a bit more than that in there, but it's going to be very similar to what's in the core manual, plus some customization options. Now, for you gearheads, we are using almost the identical system from Aspergenesis out of the Master Technician's Guide, which is your super ultra like gearhead book for for Aspergenesis. That allows you to take a frame and just build an entire ship or space station or whatever you want from the ground up. So if even if those options, if those multitude of options are slimmed down tremendously in the Phantasy Star book, you can pick up the Master Technician's Guide and take all of those rules and integrate them right into the game.
There we go. All right. Well, again, Rich is going to be, and the team are going to be at Gen Con coming up at the end of July through the beginning of August in Indianapolis. You're going to look for the team. Again, there's going to be the panel. There's going to be some of the games. Well, there's not going to be games. There's going to be panels. There's going to be lots of stuff, other stuff going on. And do keep an eye out coming up for all the info once we have it for Gamehole Con in Madison, Wisconsin in October, about mid-October, I think it is this year.
Mhm.
And anything at PAX Unplugged. I remember PAX Unplugged is actually going to be early this year. So anything yet?
Yeah, we not yet.
Okay.
PAX Unplugged is a very different animal.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But if anything comes of that, I'll make sure to get that on the social so you can start. Everyone can start planning now. Otherwise, get your pre-orders in. Again, it's going to be. I have it here somewhere. Get your pre-orders in so you can be entered to potentially win that entire package. Again, that is the hardcover book. That is the PDF of the entire book, and it is the PDF of the Search for Lovino starter adventure. Rich, as always, I love you. It's so good to talk to you again. I know we'll be chatting again soon, especially as you prep for Gen Con, because I'm going to need infos. And I guess, yeah,
That
I'll
that is it.
see you down the
And
road.
for yeah, for I'll add for for those, like I said, for those
Yeah.
of you that are going to be at Gen Con, please come visit us and
Yes.
us. We have plenty of things. So
You have plenty of things, and you can talk his ear off and ask all the questions.
I'll
So,
follow. Yes.
yes, stock him, stock him. All right, everybody, we are going to head out of here. Remember to find us on all of our socials, all the way through pretty much everything. You can see them; they're all there. I try to keep up with it as much as possible because that's my job. Until later, everybody, you have a fantastic 4th of July, and we will see you all